Yo. All right, let's see a mic check. Cool. Yep, how's everyone doing? Hope you guys are all having a good morning. 40 minutes to go, give or take. And ENVB is currently just making new highs, completely dominating the volume, as you guys can see. And obviously, this is going to be very unpredictable into market open. And this is the 1 minute chart. You guys can see how extended it's been in the last 15 minutes or so. And I think it's going to be extremely important that this starts to fade into market open, and therefore potentially being the ticker that holds the volume into market open and maintains that volume while that happens. If it goes into market open, if it consolidates into market open, then rips as soon as market opens. Whatever happens is not my concern. At least I'm going to be just watching out for what tickers consolidating, accumulating in the next 30 minutes or so that could actually run into market open, right? That could be a ticker that gains volume, consolidates for now, accumulates for now, and then later on when, a ticker like ENVB begins to die out, lose its volume, that volume will rotate into a stock that I'm watching. So I'm going to make a short list candidate, a short list of some candidates that I'm watching for that type of accumulation trade into market open, and then keep those on heavy watch into market open. Just watch how they react, watch how they trade, watch if they're grabbing liquidity, watch if they're if they're ripping into market open. If it's going up, it's no longer going to be a watch of mine, because obviously, as I just said, I'm looking for a ticker that's accumulating, consolidating, grabbing liquidity, right? Not something that's making new highs, such as ENVB right now. TOVX, this is solid. The one thing that I don't like about TOVX though is the fact that we're downtrending into market open and borderline stuck to this 45 level. I think this is going to be a very important area for me to watch, and it'll tell a lot about whether this is going to be a strong candidate for me into market open. Hopefully, it can trade in the 57s, and then in the high 40s, the 47s, 50s into market open, and then once market open, I would like it to come down, grab liquidity at like a good 40 area, just like we did here in pre-market. But grabbing liquidity in market open is a much stronger bias confirmation than it would be in pre-market. So we'll see what happens. Ideally, I'd want something that doesn't have too much volume going into market open and is looking like it's starting to die off, and that's usually something we can take advantage of. Besides TOVX, PBM is pretty mediocre setup. I would say it's coming down pretty hard into market open, and after a massive, just very quick run. Also, yeah, one thing I think most traders would prefer not to trade is a stock that just had a very, very strong and fast uprising and then loses its gains extremely quickly. These are the least reliable, most volatile, unpredictable, and very there's just overall dangerous, much higher risk for a similar reward as to anything else on the market, especially penny stocks. So I'm going to completely avoid this altogether. The setup, even without this very fast come up, even the setup itself is, not too attractive either way. So it's not a hard decision for me to make. I'd say ARTL as well. This actually looks really, really good. I think this is going to be my second favorite into market open alongside TOVX. ARTL, this is a known runner, right? Like, we've seen this countless times before for the last 5 years. We've seen this at least once every 8 months, once a year at least. So this is a known runner, and this thing catches volume so quickly. Let's take a look at this daily. We've had some crazy runs on this stock. Take a look at this. And I know we had something more recent than that too. Yep. Take a look at that. So it's just like this could catch so easily, but obviously maintaining its levels and at least holding up some sort of psychological support into market open is going to be extremely crucial. So that's why I don't trade in pre-markets. Everything's too unpredictable. There's really no, at least for my style of trading, for my edge, there's really no no way to form like an accurate and consistent strategy in pre-market, because things are different all the time. We have in market open, obviously things change all the time. We have new trends, new themes. Certain setups stop working in certain times. Certain setups start working in certain times. But in pre-market, it's completely unpredictable every day. And I think what really dictates how well pre-market is trading is mainly how big our top runner is in pre-market. I think that is extremely important. So based off all the runners today, I would say that everything looks really solid into market open. Looks like we have good volume on the day. I don't think it'll be a weak day. I think we're gonna have many trade opportunities set up for us. And yeah, as I said, ARTL gonna be a strong watch for me, as well as TOVX. Both are really really solid setups so far. We'll have to see how they open, obviously, and we'll go from there. So ARTL into market open, I would want it to at least maintain 5.5, and that's just because 5.5 is a psychological level. I'm not really basing that off anything technical. And just overall, the chart has to look appealing, right? Like, forget this line that a lot of people would draw here. I'm mainly just talking about, right, the appeal of the chart. I think that's very, very important to so many traders, right? This just comes all the way back down, to 480. Just looks like shit. Looks like a pump and dump. No one's gonna want to trade that. But if it starts to grab onto 5.5, grab some liquidity, we see a nice lower white cap, and the appeal of the chart is much higher, and therefore it's much easier to see volume come into the stock. ENVB, see some massive exhaustion happening now. And you know, that's very expected just due to how fast this run up was, right? You know, the faster a stock goes up, the much higher likelihood it'll come down in a very aggressive and fast paced way as well. And that's exactly what happened here. There's really nothing surprising about that whatsoever. But you know, there's now the question of, you know, now it gets a lot more interesting, because I think something else will start to pick up some pace before market opens. And you know, I think there's a good chance that could be PBM, especially after it just grabbed liquidity under $13. But overall, you know, we'll keep all these stickers on watch, and you know, just really watch what holds up and accumulates into open, because that's going to be where the money is, and that's where, you know, I'll be able to get in early without anybody actually watching it. Most people, you know, will be paying attention to a ticker like ENVB, you know, or PBM, you know, or whatever really has the volume in the moment, but I'll just be looking elsewhere. And we should hopefully get a trade in the first, you know, hour. That'd be a good scenario, just based off the market, based off the volume so far. I don't see why not. There's many good setups. As I said, ENVB exhausting now, so we'll see if you know, PBM can take the volume for now and you know, lead into market open, and then from there, you know, the more diversity we see in different tickers taking the volume before market open, the more confidence and conviction I'll have in finding a trade that's accumulating after market opens, something I can get in early on before the volume is already flooded into that trade. ARTL, I think I'm going to take this off my candidate list, just mainly due to the fact that, you know, it's losing all of its traction here. It's, you know, it's losing its appeal, right? You know, I was talking about appeal a couple minutes ago. You know, there's no more appeal here, especially, you know, I would say this is, you know, it's really its last you know, stronghold. So I think if it loses 520 or 515, you know, and it stays under there, especially into market open, its appeal will be gone, and it's going to be so much harder to flood volume into the stock. You know, this was an exciting one for me. Obviously, you know, ARTL is a very well-known runner. It can easily grab volume. They had a recent reverse split. It fits a theme. Bio company, you know, it's an explosive ticker, but with no appeal, it really means nothing. Let me know what you guys are, you know, watching in chat. Just in case I miss any tickers, you know, sometimes, you know, my screener doesn't really pick up on a couple tickers. So if you guys see anything, just take the volume randomly and I'm not talking about it. It'd be great if you guys can, you know, put it in chat, my chat, pull it up on another monitor here. I think ENVB, just by the looks of it, is going to be either a massive failure or a massive success into market open. And obviously this isn't something I'm going to trade whatsoever. It's, you know, it's too volatile, too extended, too dangerous. You know, it's, you know, obviously it could be a momentum trader's paradise, but that's not my edge. I'm looking for something slow, something consolidating, accumulating, grabbing liquidity, not something that could knife, you know, 80 cents on me within 5 minutes. But this is going to dictate exactly how quickly I'm able to get into a trade, what trade I'm going to get into, right? The volume trapped into ENVB right now can affect the other tickers in so many different ways. So obviously this is going to be such an important ticker for me to watch the entire day until it fully loses its traction. And by that time, I'm hoping, hey, when it begins to even lose its traction, its volume, its momentum, at that time, at that moment, I should already have that trade. I should already be in it because that's where I expect the volume to go to next. We saw last week too. Just one thing I wanted to point out: we saw last week, early into the week at least, mainly that there were a lot of multi-day runners, just tickers that ran the day before last week. I saw that was a reoccurring theme happening Monday, Tuesday, a little bit maybe into Wednesday. Later into the week, it wasn't really happening as much, but that's something I'm gonna look out for as well. I am gonna keep an eye on multi-day runners, even if they have an uglier, less appealing setup, just to see if luckily I'll be able to spot some loads or some liquidity being grabbed at some prices and go from there. I'm almost done just shortlisting the 9 tickers, and I'll start to talk it over with you guys more and more as we get into market open. Also, in the meantime, as I'm waiting to for the market to approach the open, we have around 20 minutes left. So if you guys have any questions in chat, please feel free to ask, anything about pretty much anything. If you guys are new here, welcome. This isn't like a fast-paced stream where like I'm gonna be trading like 24/7, trying to catch every single momentum trade, trying to sell you guys a course. I don't have a course. I don't sell anything. I don't trade nearly as often as I used to. I made over 7 figures in profits trading, and I've recorded most of that, posted on my social media, on my Twitter. You guys can scroll back countless times, my old YouTube videos. But nowadays, I'm a master's student. I'm getting my master's in quantitative economics, and I plan to be a quantitative trader in a couple years. So I'm just building my portfolio, trying to strengthen my trades, especially my due diligence abilities as much as possible. Something I've been working on for a while now. So if you guys have any questions, I'm mainly just on here just because obviously I'm taking it slow, and it's cool to just be here, document my process, have a YouTube, kind of like building a resume or my reputation online, and just something I can look back on. This is obviously, building a YouTube will never help me in my career where I really want to be, and my end goal, which is, obviously a lot bigger than doing what I'm doing now. But it is something, I can look back on in 10 years and just be like, wow, I get to see my process. If you go to my oldest video, you'll hear my voice. It's so squeaky. I was 15 years old. I think it was 6 years ago or 5 years ago. And yeah, I look back at that all the time, and it feels great. And so, it's cool to have you guys here. I'm just letting you know, I'm not going to be very fast paced. I'm just going to use my knowledge, my experience. I'll trade right in front of you guys, and if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to ask me. And I'll get back to you when I see your messages. It's going to be a little more hectic into market open, but if you guys have any questions for the next 15 minutes, I got you. So ENVB is starting to pick up the pace again. That's very interesting because, it lost a lot of its momentum. Coming down here, I want to flip to the 1 minute. It's more easily exaggerated here. So it lost a shit ton of its momentum, came down all the way, under 4, grabbed liquidity, and now it's starting to pick up that momentum again. And I think this is going to be a very strong sign that ENVB is here to last today. It's not going to be one of those pre-market runners that just fades into open. I could very well be wrong, and I hope I am, just because, with my trading style, that's going to open the doors to a volume rotating from ENVB into a consolidation accumulation stock that I'm trading, that I've been accumulating. But, ENVB just looks very, very strong, and based on how, we saw things play out last week, the market was very reliant on pre-market major runners, and, they were very, very consistent throughout the day as well. So just basing it off the trend and, how things went last week, ENVB just looks very, very strong, and that leads me to have more conviction that, okay, ENVB might last a little longer and might hold and sustain that volume, that momentum. I'm going to start looking at stocks that are even more exaggerated during accumulation. For example, if I were to take a look at TOVX, if someone came and told me that, hey, I know for a fact that ENVB is going to be running into market open and it's going to keep running for an hour after market open, I don't want to watch something that is already has already grabbed some liquidity right here. For example, let's pretend like this is right now, and someone had told me that, and TOVX already grabbed liquidity and is consolidating at 47. I would want to watch something that is just consolidating, drifting, not making these types of moves all the way from 43 to 47. I'm trying my best to phrase it in a way. I hope that makes sense. I would want to watch something that is, smooth, is very smooth and gradual and has a low variance, right? This is drifting in variance, right? It's such rapid movement, something that's consolidating and, accumulating and, in a low volume environment, and something that, or a stock that, you know, can pick up pace so quickly, is a stock that's just smooth and does not vary much. But if I was told that ENVB is going to run right now, or sorry, it's going to stop running in like 10 minutes, then yes, this is a very ideal situation. I would want to be in a stock that is grabbing liquidity and, you know, starting to pick up the pace right now. So that's kind of mainly why I'm very closely observing ENVB, and obviously I do this every single day for any stock that is the top gainer, because, you know, it will very, very closely affect any stock that has a chance of running on the day. CMND is starting to pick up pace as well. Let's take a look at that. So as I said earlier, we saw that ENVB was losing that volume, that traction, and I told you guys as soon as we started to see this come down that, you know, there would be another ticker that, you know, starts to gain that traction, gain that volume. And take a look. So let's just do this right in front of each other. So we have 9:03 there on 1 minute, right? Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to flip to the 1 minute chart on CMND. If we take a look at 9:04, so this is 9:04 on ENVB. If we look at 9:04 on CMND, this is it. So as soon as, basically my point is, this is volume rotation. Prime example is it's just a very simple and, you know, solid example for like anyone who hasn't seen this before. This is volume rotation happening in the market. ENVB lost its traction, it lost its momentum, and a stock is not going to lose that, you know, some momentum, some traction, especially a stock as strong as ENVB in one candle, two candles, right? So it took a move all the way from $5 to under $4 in about like 7 candles, 8 candles, for it to actually begin to lose real traction. And then CMND, or yeah, what is it? CMND, at that same minute when ENVB lost its traction, actually gained momentum and gained volume, right? So that's volume rotation. That's what so my goal is every single day when I come on, when I trade, my goal is to find, you know, the CMND to whatever is the ENVB on the day. I want to find the stock that, as you can see, is accumulating, consolidating, grabbing liquidity, as you can see. And then I want to be in before anyone even knows that this stock is going to run. CMND was great. This was a very, very solid setup, especially with the liquidity grab near $1. But I don't trade pre-market because, you know, my strategy relies on pre-market having settled out already. And, you know, that market open volume is very, very important. It says so much about the day. So I want to be, you know, because think about it. Realistically, in this situation, there was someone here watching CMND before anyone else while it was grabbing liquidity near $1. And they were like, okay. And guess what? As soon as ENVB began to, you know, started to come down, we'd look at 855 on ENVB. That's where it made that peak. Let's look at 855 here. That's exactly when it ripped. So this is volume rotation. It's very, very clear. And the hardest part, obviously it's so easy for me to show you guys right now after it already happened. But first of all, 90% of people don't even know that this exists or is a thing. A lot of people are just very stupid. I mean, not stupid, but like very easily influenced by people who have no idea what they're talking about, and, you know, rely on things like support and resistance levels and like EMAs. Obviously, I'm not saying EMAs are bullshit. They're not. Obviously, moving averages they're good, but at the end of the day, nothing's more important than the volume that sustains a stock and the momentum that's happening on the day. You know, we buy what people, you know, at the end of the day, if people think something is going to go up, it's more likely to go up. It's more likely to happen. That's everything. That's the foundation. I believe that's the foundation of economics, at least. And I think that volume obviously is the most crucial part of trading. I think that's very blatant. And volume rotation, a lot of people, are just very, very ignorant when it comes to paying attention to it. And I think that if you're able to actually look at it in the right way and you're able to analyze the setup and you're able to time it correctly, that's really the hardest part, is timing this trade correctly. Because think about it, at 8:55 when ENVB lost its momentum, I would, if let's just say this was market open, I wanted to trade this setup because this is the type of setup that I trade. At 8:55, when ENVB lost its momentum, it lost its volume during that candle right here. Okay, let's just say I shortlisted my candidates and I see, okay, CMND, because ideally this is the situation that I would like to happen. I say CMND, this is my number one candidate for when ENVB loses its volume. But I want to make sure I time the entry right. And, there is a chance that ENVB never loses its volume. So I can't just buy CMND and just wait for it to go up, because what if ENVB never loses this volume and it just keeps going? We've seen that happen countless times. It happens all the time. So the timing needs to be right. So we see ENVB upper wick here, and we see it close at 468 after making a high of 490. So it rejects that $5 psychological resistance, and we see a pretty decently sized upper wick here and a pretty big body. So this is a very, very, very positive sign that sellers are dominant near $5, but still that doesn't really tell us shit at the end of the day. We've seen candles like this all the time, and then a couple minutes later they explode. But then at the same second I'm looking at CMND, I'm like, okay, wait, ENVB just started to come down. It lost a lot of its momentum. So now I should buy CMND, but what happened here, for example? If we take a look at 839, what happened here? We saw almost that same candle. And then boom. Obviously the body was a little bit longer, and it didn't have a lower wick, which obviously that is not the same situation. Okay, here, take a look at this. There we go. That's a better example. Same exact candle is right here. So you can't just rely on candles or resistance levels. Like, it's not going to work. Obviously, there's so much that can benefit. They could add to your conviction, of course. Like, lower wicks are extremely important. Dojis, a sign of buyers versus seller resistance strength. Those are very important concepts, yes. But my point is being able to actually wait this move out, and then having the confidence in your trade to be able to see CMND was already going up. It was already breaking out. So you see this candle, you want to wait longer. You want to wait for it to really lose its momentum, because look what happened here. It never lost its momentum. So then you see that massive drop, massive candle that came down with, decent, it's a heavy volume candle, right? So that gives you even more proof. Okay, ENVB, now it actually looks like it's losing its momentum. It's losing its volume. The tape looks extremely stellar dominated, but CMND is already ripping. It went from 114 to 127. It's like, what is that? That's 11%, 11.5%, whatever it may be. So at that point, you need the conviction in your trade. This timing is just, it's obviously the hardest part of the trade by far. And so my whole point is, I can easily sit here and show you guys this and tell you, oh, this is the setup, this is, what I trade, but it's so much more complicated and complex than that. And anyone could sit here and point it out to you guys like I did, how this volume rotation played out exactly how it should have. But first of all, finding CMND, out of every stock that's running, you find the ticker that's accumulating, and you find the ticker that's going to take over the volume. Because think about it. Let's look at TOVX, for example. That's what I was watching. But I'm watching TOVX into market open. TOVX was also, consolidating and, in a range bound way. It was, rejecting 46, bouncing off 45. So this is some solid accumulation happening. Grab some liquidity under 45. Why didn't this one go? Why is it that CMND went? So first off, you have to find the right play. You have to shortlist some candidates and then watch them very, very closely as ENVB loses its volume. choose the right one. Then after you choose the right one, you have to time the entry correctly. Then after you time the entry correctly, you have to not get stopped out and not get faked out, because these plays will chop you out very, very quickly if you don't have conviction. It happens just like this. And I was live last week. I don't know if it was Friday or Thursday, but I traded this exact same setup on live. And when I was in the trade, you guys can go watch the live back. I'm pretty sure it was like towards the last 2/3 of the live. But while I was in the trade, I was down, over like 80% of the time that I was in the trade, and it was coming down. It was trying to chop me out. These setups, especially just because they're so low volume, chop is so common. So you have to not get chopped out. Look at this situation right here. If I had conviction in this trade, as an accumulation play to take the volume after ENVB, if I entered right here, as soon as ENVB lost its volume, I would never sell on this move. I would never sell here. I would never stop out. Because I know that ENVB is still not reclaiming anything. It's still losing its momentum even here. So why in the world would I ever sell at 9 exactly here, 9 o'clock? When CMND dumped at 9 o'clock right here, 9:01, 9:02, ENVB was also still coming down, 9:01, 9:02. So why in the world would I ever sell here? But if you don't have conviction in your trade, you would get stopped out immediately. You would be so scared the entire time. This lower wick already stopped out a bunch of people, so they grabbed liquidity again. And then it ripped one more time. So just look at this. And also it's like, let's just say you're watching CMND beforehand too, before any of this. Look how low it came. It came all the way down to $1. So you have to be ready for anything, really. It's always a different situation. It's always some bullshit. You have to thug it out no matter what, because these plays, they just want to fuck you at the end of the day. That's really all it is. The stock, how I look at it is, the stock wants to go without you. It does not want you in the trade. It does not want you to hold equity of it when it runs. So it will do anything to get you out. So I don't look at it as in like maybe this wasn't the right trade. Maybe I need to stop out soon. I know that if I'm entering a stock, no matter where it goes, unless it's like a very strong level, I never have predetermined stop losses, predetermined take profits, none of that. Because it's all very time, dependent, and who knows what happens with the ENVB. So ENVB, now the market open, I expect the ENVB to take over 5 and just really dominate the day, just based off what happened last week. We'll see what happens if it doesn't. Ideally, I would like there to be a top gainer, a stock that is dominating the volume, dominating the market, and ENVB obviously is the strongest candidate for that. And while we see ENVB dominate the market, take highs, if it is the ticker that does it, I'll be looking for something that's accumulating, consolidating, grabbing liquidity, and make some candidates happen in the first 10 minutes of market open. And obviously, I'm going to prioritize things that fit the theme and fit the trend more than things that don't. For example, reverse splits are extremely, extremely hot. Especially if it's a low float beaten down penny stock. So if I see a penny stock with that type of setup, that's going to be prioritized over anything else. There you go. So ENVB taking highs here. Hopefully, no, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said taking highs, but it's attempting to break highs here. So hopefully it can break 5 and sustain some volume for a while. That's a good situation for us because we need something dominating the market. So it's clear when I see volume rotation. If volume is scattered all over the place with different tickers, it won't be as clear to me, where the volume is going to go next. So there we go. That $5 break on ENVB. That's brilliant. Wow. Great trade for any momentum trader. See, that ENVB to me here was a very obvious trade. It wasn't really obvious. I wouldn't say obvious. Nothing is obvious, but it was by far the strongest candidate to take highs into market open and dominate the market. There was literally nothing else. But I'm not a momentum trader. I'm lost in the sauce when I try to trade stocks that are just fucking so extended and, you know, can lose me 30% in 2 minutes. It's just not my thing. I don't like it. But there are a lot of momentum traders, and I don't know, if they didn't see that and weren't confident on that, then maybe they shouldn't be trading momentum. So, okay, now is where we start to see things settle out. So a lot of stocks are going to lose support, or sorry, not support levels. Yeah, just like lose levels in general. They're just going to start dumping and lose critical psychological levels. Those are the most important to me, just psychological numbers like 110, 105, 150. And those immediately, perfect, out of the way. It's not going to be you. But whatever like starts to hold up and is, you know, just, you know, slowly like consolidating, I need it to come down. Of course, I need it to look like it's going to go to shit, because if it's attractive to other people, it's not going to be the stock that I want. It needs to lose its appeal temporarily, is my point. Wow, RSMG, what the heck? RMSG. Wow. So 1 minute until the first 5 minutes are over. And then we're going to look at 5 minute lower wicks. I'll show you guys in a sec what I mean by that. And then we'll see. So, okay. CMND made new highs. ENVB is starting to slow down. So ENVB pushing for new highs is a sign that, CMND pushing for new highs is a sign that ENVB is not going to be a top gainer for much longer, and it's going to start to lose its momentum. That's volume rotation. You know, sometimes it happens in different orders. It could be that ENVB loses its traction first, but sometimes we can see a very clear signal as traders who have no control over the market, who have no influence, who trade with very small size compared to the real movers. You know, we can kind of see where the influence is coming from, and I could take note. Okay, CMND is starting to push up. It's starting to gain volume. If ENVB was such a dominant runner and it was going to run all day, and it was going to be one of those stocks that just dominate for at least, you know, an hour into market open, most of the time CMND would not be, you know, making new highs and, you know, showing, you know, strong power. And it's halted too, by the way. So ENVB, let's see if it pushes for a high day here. I think CMND is going to be very exciting to watch from a momentum perspective after it unhalts. I think it's gonna tell us a lot. And RMSG too, also competing with ENVB for the volume. So yeah, remember I said like a couple minutes ago, when we have too much volume spread out, it's not the most ideal situation for my strategy. It's like, okay, we're watching RMSG and ENVB compete with each other for the volume, and now it's harder to track when there really is going to be a volume rotation. And on a lot of times as well, when we do have volume spread out between many different tickers in the market open, I don't see any good candidate for my type, you know, for the type of trade that I'm describing to you guys. So keep that in mind. There's obviously many days where I hop on and I don't trade at all, but based on how today's setting up, I really don't think it's gonna be one of those days. I hope it's gonna be like last week. Last week was all right. We saw a lot of opportunities, and we definitely capitalized on some. CMND on halt is going to be exciting. Very exciting, actually. I think that's a really explosive stock, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Reverse split December 25, okay. I just filled a gap too. Okay, so let's see. All right, so this isn't a ticker I actually expected. I actually didn't really see myself thinking I would even pay attention to this much today. But take a look at PBM here. I actually like this setup. I'm gonna switch to the 5-minute. It's a multi-day runner. As I was telling you guys earlier, multi days were hotter last week, which is why I'm keeping them on watch for this week, especially at the beginning of the week. So it's a multi-day, and it had a reverse split February, which okay, it's whatever. But reverse splits, as I said, especially on beaten down penny stocks such as PBM, have been moving very, very well. So what I want to see here though is on the 5-minute, we see this lower wick into the first 5-minute candle. I want to see, some type of sweep under that. So I would like this to come consolidate near 12.5 as, all the other tickers dominate the volume for now. So ENVB, whatever the other one is, RMSG, CMND, let them fight for the volume. Let them dominate, let them argue over the volume. Something eventually will, just make new highs. My money's on ENVB still. We'll see what happens. Maybe even, maybe CMND actually as well. I do think that's an explosive stock, even though it didn't do so well after the unhalt. Let one of them, take the volume and just make high a day and just completely dominate. While that happens, I would like PBM to come grab liquidity under 12.5 and give that unappealing factor. And so that's mandatory to me. So I would never want this stock to just be, holding up above 13, climbing up, making higher lows. I don't want that at all. So let's see what happens. 12.5 is a good psychological level as well. So we'll see if it's able to grab liquidity near it or under it, and we'll go from there. And also it's like at the same time, a lot of other people are trading momentum on PBM, and obviously every other ticker there is in the market. But you take a look at this candle right here, $14 was the tip of the wick on that candle. $14. So someone got stuck in it probably at $14. And think about it here as well. So it's trading at 16. That's something that I don't like about PBM. I didn't expect myself to be watching this at all, but as I said, every single day it's going to be different. Like I don't like the fact that PBM is has such a has seen such high prices and is trading already so quickly at 12 from 16, so quickly. That's that's a very, very strong percent. It ran so quickly here as well. Such a strong bounce in just 10 minutes, and then gave all that back away. So this shows some fragile features that I don't like personally. But as I said, every single day is going to be different. So if I see this and I'm like, okay, there's sacrifices here, but then I'm also like, okay, well, last week, multi-day runners were hot, and PBM also has a recent reverse split, and then I end up seeing the setup form and I see some liquidity grabbed at 12.5. You just gotta do it. It's all a probability game, right? That's all it is. So if it fits in the metric that I dream of in my head of whatever, that being my probability, then I take it, even if it's not ideal. So ENVB is struggling to make high a day and take the volume here. So let's see what happens. I see that CMND is halted again. Wow. CMND halted again. RMSG, the one we were talking about earlier, also coming down. So this is also like another example of why I don't trade momentum. Like, look how much shop there is in the market. Like, so many people got fucked right now. 100 times the amount of people that got screwed. Sorry, 100 times the amount of people that profited got screwed. So it's hard. It's very tough. I find that there's so much higher likelihood probability of succeeding taking a trade that has much lower volume. Even if it never ends up going, it's like you lose not even nearly as much. Like, take a look at RMSG. This was, so many people were probably hyped up about this, saying this is going to be the one. And it happens all the time too. And there's a lot of chop even right now. So PBM also, wow, nice, okay. So yeah, a lot of times as well, there's setups that I'll be watching. Like I told you guys earlier, I would like it to come to that 12.5 and come below it and grab liquidity, you know, 12.5, 12.4, even near it. Before I had told you guys that it had already come down to 12.7, but I hadn't noticed the play. I hadn't seen it yet. But 12.7 even then is not enough for me, just because I see the volume so spread out that I would like it to take longer. But I think that's where I messed up. I do think that, you know, PBM could be a solid trade even now, just because there is no volume dominating anywhere. And so that 12.7, that liquidity that was grabbed near the 12.5, this could very well pay off right now, and it could break 14. So we'll see. Also, you really have to keep in mind, nothing else has taken the volume as of now. So it's up for grabs. It's up for grabs. PBM should break 14 here. Dirty on PBM, and wow, let's see if it's able to grab a lower wick here. But yeah, it's heavy chop. It's heavy chop, and that's why liquidity being grabbed is so important to me. That's why, you know, I'll wait till 12.5. If it doesn't come, and a lot of times it doesn't, and the stock just ends up exploding without me. I've seen it happen a million times. But it's just my rules. I gotta stick to it, and a lot of times liquidity being grabbed at a certain price at a certain area just saves me, and very, you know, very disciplined when it comes to the rules. Otherwise, it would never turn out good. What's happening with the FCHL? Wow. Holy shit, CMND. What a lower wick. Wow, that is insane. What a move. CMND looks explosive, my gosh. Take a look at this. Take a look at this, guys. So 5 minute into market open, lower wick at 122, grabbed liquidity under that level. And if we switch to the 1 minute to see where it grabbed liquidity and what happened, it grabbed the liquidity under that level, recovered in that same exact minute. Massive lower wick, so massive buyer demand happening in that area. Buyers are completely dominant over the 115 area. The next candle, another lower wick happening at 122. At the same exact level at the lower wick of the first 5 minute candle, lower wick of the market open. So we grab liquidity once again at that level, 122. I would say it's just a lower wick there, and my gosh, what a setup! That is a very, very beautiful setup. It's just it's so aesthetic. This looks fucking phenomenal. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. Just the whole way that happened, and it's almost perfectly even, to show a change in seller domination after this move here. We almost had just as equivalent of a lower wick as an upper wick, so that's very, very cool, actually. Very cool. So you'll know, I think it's pretty clear that there's so much volume spread out right now between so many different tickers like ENVB, PBM, FCHL, and that makes everything so much choppier and more dangerous and just more of a headache to trade. Like, you can see all the lower wicks happening, all the choppiness, people getting screwed on so many different situations. On CMND, like, just imagine this. Come on, this lower wick all the way at 116, and just a couple minutes earlier before it halted, it was trading at 150, and now it's all the way back up. So there's this volume so spread out, so many different tickers, and that's why there's so much chop, because instead of the volume rotation happening smoothly between the exchange of one ticker that's maintaining it and to another ticker that's going to take it, or one ticker that's maintaining it to two different stocks that can battle for it and hold it out for 30 minutes before one of them goes, we're volume rotating per minute because there's such little volume here and there spread out that it just becomes so choppy. I hope that makes sense, but it's pretty clear what's happening. If you just I have all of this, the top gainers, 9 of them just on my screen right here, and you can just see all the chop. It's very crazy. See, even TOVX has somehow revived from the dead. That's how much volume is being rotated everywhere. Wow, that is really, really crazy, actually. What a move. What a move. I feel like TOVX, I would say this is a solid setup. You know, another day may like barely, but today I would not trade this at all, just because there's, you know, the volume is so spread out that, you know, an accumulation trade this early into the day that you know, is just dumping into market open. It's too risky. It's too risky. And PBM, now we're finally seeing 1250. I think PBM, just based off how it's been setting up all day, I think this is one of those tickers that's going to trade between, you know, 12.20 and $13 all day today, and just it's just going to upper wick, lower wick, upper wick, lower wick between those two levels, and just absolutely play with people all day. I don't think it's the type of ticker to just lose all of its traction, just completely dump all the way. But yeah, again, this is why I think it's so important to just come down and grab liquidity at a certain level, because, you know, or a certain area that's important. For example, on PBM for me, it was under that 12.5 right here, and never got that, and now it's all the way back down. TOVX, let's see if it rejects this 45. Usually as well, when we see so many different tickers, you know, just competing for the volume all at once, and we have so many different stocks running, there's chop all over the board. A lot of times as well, we see just a random stock out of nowhere that, you know, no one's heard of, like, that hasn't had any volume through the entire day, just absolutely rip and take the volume out of nowhere like an hour into market open. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye for. Usually I have traded the actual momentum and the volume on those, surprisingly, a couple times, because they're a lot less low risk if you're able to just catch it early. And, you know, obviously not that early, that would be impossible. There was obviously going to be, you know, at least a 20-25% move already happened, but that's early in a lot of cases. And, you know, if you know what's happening on the day, and you know, hey, this happens a lot, and, you know, it's probability. That's all it is. FCHL, my gosh. Let's switch to that. We gotta look at that. Wow. Wow. So FCHL should halt soon. sorry I'm a little quiet. I'm just analyzing everything, trying to find a candidate, but I really don't see anything, to be honest. TOVX looks like the closest setup, but as I said, there's just so much volume spread out right now. I don't feel comfortable trading it. Setup looks good though, just the overall 5 minute on TOVX. Pre-market situation is not the best, it's all right, but as you guys can see, this 5 minute lower wick came back, grabbed liquidity under that level, just lower wicked again and just consolidated it, and then saw a nice move. And I would obviously I'm still watching it and I want to see more accumulation happen, and I would like to see a trade between a range, hopefully between, a good 43 and, maybe 45 or 41 and 45 even. But my main concern is not the technicality and, it's not the flow, it's not the due diligence behind it. It's literally just the volume. That's the most important part, because it's just everything is so choppy right now that even if TOVX were to break above 45 here, just look at what it's competing with, right? You have ENVB right now that almost just wicked upwards instead of downwards. Like, what the fuck is going on? Look at that chop. That's 7 cents. It's like that's like 13% right there. So we have, this is the chop that I'm talking about here. So now this is taking the volume. You take a look at FCHL, or sorry, what is it? What's the other one? RMSG. It was the ENVB actually, yeah, but also going up at the same time. So both competing for volume. We have FCHL. I'm going to keep TOVX on my other chart. If something happens, I'll pull it back up. But let's pull them up closely. We have both of them moving upwards at the same time. They're both competing for volume together. So clearly FCHL overall is dominating, but, and that tells you that, hey, RMSG should slow down, should lose its traction here. We also have ENVB, which obviously should be losing its traction much stronger than it is, but for some reason it's still holding up well when we have FCHL completely dominating it. And it has FCHL, has completely single-handedly prevented ENVB from taking high a day multiple times. If you look at it from a volume perspective, it's FCHL that has basically said, nope, you're not going to take high a day because I'm taking all the volume. And still ENVB is holding up so surprisingly well. And, on another day where I would have already found my ideal setup, on an ideal day for me, ENVB would already be trading in the 3.5 area. But it's still somehow holding up so well. It barely has come down a little bit. FCHL just made a whole new high a day again. And we saw a move from 78 all the way to 87 in one candle. Take a look at ENVB. It barely came down from 4.9 to 4.75. That's a joke. So it happens, obviously. As I told you guys, there's some days where volume is spread out between multiple different tickers, and there's definitely a way where I can get a trade in today, especially because of how hot it is. It's not just a day where the volume is spread out. We also have a theme happening. We have the reverse split theme. We have beaten down penny stock theme. So it's hot, and there's definitely a way we can see some return. Wait, again, FCHL is still going up, still high a day. ENVB should already be down under 4 for sure, 100% on the ideal day. So I don't know if I should say should be, but on the ideal day for me, it would. Take a look at RMSG making a high a day at the same time as FCHL. This is genuinely a rare occurrence, actually, like altogether, on any day. This is a rare occurrence. We don't often see two stocks making high days, explosive high days at the same time of each other, especially. So I think this is a very good start to the week, and I'm happy how this is going so far, because this just means we have a very hot market right now. We have a very hot market, very momentum, volume filled market. So this is good. This is all really, really good news. And I'll see how it is tomorrow as well. And from there, the first 2 days will, they say so much about the rest of the week, and from there I'll be able to, fully just have a modified view at the rest of the week, where I'll be trying to take advantage of what I'm going to see here and tomorrow, because I'm going to expect it to trade the week the same, or relatively the same, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, as it will on Monday and Tuesday. FCHL, wow. And FCHL, guys, I've been saying it from the morning. Remember, reverse split theme, beaten down penny stock theme. What is FCHL? It's more of a reverse split, beaten down penny stock than arguably anything on the entire market. So that's why the theme is so important. Even though ENVB can look so ugly, so unattractive, if it fits the theme, it should be at the top of your list, no matter what. ENVB had a reverse split on March 23rd, so a month ago, and it's completely beaten down. And you can watch my lives from last week. It's the first thing I say. That's the theme. That's what we need to watch, right? So but what a recovery. I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous on a stock that pump and dumped like this. See, this is such an unattractive, unappealing setup to me in pre-market, especially I would have never traded FCHL just based on how fast it dumped off this setup here. This looks like a straight up pump and dump. Why would I touch this ever throughout the day? But my God, what a recovery that is. That's amazing. And that's theme alone. Theme and theme and volume, obviously. But obviously it's so easy for me to just sit here and tell you guys it after it happened, but I'm just pointing it out just because a lot of people don't even know what's happening in the first place. So it's halted up. Oh wow, PBM. I haven't been paying attention to that. PBM. You guys know that 12.5 level we were talking about. It came and it grabbed liquidity under. So let's see what happens here, especially with FCHL halted for now. Again, it's a solid setup, but I don't think for me right now the reward outweighs the risk by that much to where I would take it, because I do think there's a very, a decent chance as well that it's just going to flush right at 14.1 or 14.2 once again, mainly due to the volume being tied up, in so many different stocks, all this chop happening. And on top of that, it's also, it's above $10, and it's a multi-day runner that, had a nice move in pre-market where it's like there's going to be bag holders waiting to dump at every single level. Just technically speaking, it's an attractive setup, absolutely. Especially it coming down to where I wanted it to, where I was telling you guys I wanted it at under that 12.5. But overall, I don't think I'm gonna end up taking it today, to be honest. I think just based on how everything's going, I'm gonna stay patient and wait for something that I think can give me the real probability target that I want. But I also, like I told you guys, that's mainly why I think that PBM is just gonna do this all day, right? It's just gonna chop upwards of 14, come down, bounce off 13, 20, and just fuck with people all day. I'm not basing that off any specific trait that PBM has. I'm just basing it off the fact that the volume is spread out everywhere. And if you take a look at ENVB while all this is happening, it's still holding up, right? It's still holding up surprisingly. This is very interesting because while we see two tickers that made high a day, that had the volume together, that were both competing for it, both had high a day. FCHL is still continuously making high a day as well, if we take a look at it right now. And somehow ENVB is still holding up. ENVB, like I said earlier, this should definitely be near low fours right now. Definitely. So let's see what this does. My very good friend who I trade alongside with when I am trading, he's on every single day. He's a momentum trader, and we collaborate, we share ideas just because I'm more of an accumulation trader. He trades purely momentum. He's in on ENVB right now. And we were just talking about it. I told him definitely not me, but obviously there's so many times where we disagree, and a lot of times he's right. I would say he's probably right more than I am, to be honest. But he is one of the best momentum traders I know, and he's liking ENVB, which isn't really a momentum trade in general, right? This is more of an accumulation trade at this point now. But like I said earlier, it got to be very picky today, and just load up all the 9 top daily gainers, however many there may be, and just put them all next to each other, and just think about most traders. If they weren't picky today, how would it have gone for them? Pull up any chart, pull up ENVB, PBM, TOVX, CMND, every single one of them screwed people over massively, like every single one of them. The only ticker that, so far, obviously there's certain runs that can't possibly screw anyone over, but the odds of someone, catching this run here and then ending up selling it here versus someone, continuously trading this repeatedly too. This is like a one and done type of thing. This is like, I keep getting chopped out. I'm back in. These are the hardest days to trade in general for the average person, I think, because the best move is to just sit on the sidelines and just watch everything play out. Like FCHL, this was, obviously it was, I'm not going to say it was unpredictable, because if you look at the first 5 minutes, we did see, that lower wick at 4-2, and then boom, again, another test here, grab, massive lower wick again before it ran. But at the same time, the volume was so choppy everywhere. And look at this pre-market. Like, come on, this is so hideous. This looks like a straight up pump and dump. I would want to stay 10 feet away from this at all times. So this is very, very rare. A setup like this that dumped this hard in pre-market, could recover that well, but it did. And everything else got screwed in the meantime, everything. So patience today is the winning trade overall. Nice, ENVB. I'm going to show you guys I don't know if you guys actually could see my Discord, I'm not sure, but I'll try either way. Well, I just want to show you guys what my friend, who I was telling you guys about, who's in ENVB, he mainly texted me about it just because, it is like an accumulation type of trade happening here. Just wanted my opinion. I told him personally, me, not today. Obviously, I wouldn't take this trade, or like really like even if it's an ideal setup. But he took it, and he has some good thoughts on the trade as well. But I don't think I'm going to be able to show you guys. Yeah, you guys can see that. Damn. But basically, I'll just read it to you guys. He's typing in his Discord. He has a Discord server. He said, "I'm still hawking ENVB. Tons of liquidity sitting within this wick." And then he said, ENVB 15-minute wick. let's go on the 15 minutes. Where was it? This one. It's this one right here. And then he said he's going to be accumulating slowly. Oh, he didn't really feed much thoughts. Maybe I'll just read you guys what he texted me. So, okay. This is why I'm going to basically summarize in 2 minutes why he took this trade. Obviously, he's still in it. He hasn't sold or anything. I think his average is probably around the 480s maybe. But the main reason he took this trade is due to the fact that on the 15-minute, there was a very large candle wick that sustained and held up to the pre-market resistance area, which I'm trying to find. I don't know which one he's talking about, but I would guess it's this area. I would guess it's the 450 psychological level, and it wicked there, it grabbed that liquidity, and he said that the tape looked very, very strong, and so he took the trade. And it's not a bad trade. And he also noticed that his consensus also was that FCHL is going to start to slow down soon. He's also a momentum trader, so he has an edge for that type of stuff. He can look at FCHL and know when it's going to start slowing down a lot faster than the average person would. But that's something I personally can't do. So, and even if I could, I don't think I would ever base a trade off that. But so yeah, that's why he took the trade. We'll watch. We'll see how it plays out. As I said before, it's not that I don't like the setup, even though I am very iffy about the setup in the first place. I'm not iffy about this part, this first 5 minute to market open. I'm just thinking about the fact that we already made highs. We already made highs into market open. What more else is there to do on ENVB while there's a billion other things happening? What else really is there to do? Is it worth? I don't think the probability here aligns with me at all. The more I think about it, it gets even worse too, because we're trading already higher than pre-market high almost. Yeah, so this is not for me at all, but I hope it works out for him. See, if you look at something like, I'm going to compare it to CMND, for example. It's like CMND, obviously not the ideal accumulation setup, but still, at least we're trading below pre-market high. At least we haven't filled pre-market high yet. So there is some type of goal still. Whereas ENVB, it's like, everyone's kind of sick of it type of thing. It's like, just like look at the overall like market view. As I said at the beginning when I first started this live, when people think something's going to happen, it's more likely to happen always in every situation. I think that's a very big foundation of economics. But ENVB still, if I were to just zoom in and look at it in a momentum trader's view, where I think my friend is looking at it from, and especially he focuses really, really hard on the tape, I do think this looks pretty solid. So we'll see how it goes for him. I hope it works out. In the meantime, I'm still trying to find a good candidate, and usually I would have already wanted to know exactly what I'm trading and what I'm watching. The first 10 minutes into market open, I should usually have 3 candidates. But on days like this, when the volume is more spread out, everything is extended. I told you guys, I don't know if you guys remember, but I said that at the beginning of this live, like everything just gets extended out, right? Like instead of looking for a trade that's already grabbing liquidity and making a move, I look for a trade that's actually consolidating even longer, because I know that things are going to take time to settle out. Wow, PBM. So yeah, those 1250 touches, that mattered. That mattered a lot. And that's why it's able to have this controlled upside happening now, rather than just a fleek, just test and dump, but still very, very risky. I'm not a big fan of PBM either. And I'm also being very, very, very picky. PBM also recent reverse split beginning of February, so fits the theme in some way as well. Something to keep in mind. Yep, and there comes PBM. So, like I said, patience is the real winner today. And PBM is just going to do this all day. That's what I've been thinking about. That's why I'm staying away with it. So it's just like, at some point, you have to just stereotype. No matter what you're looking at, it's like, yeah, they could be different, but just stereotype. Stereotyping in general is always a very, very good method with stocks. But especially on days like today, you got to be real fucking picky. And still, PBM is... it's still holding up. Like, it's just so funny. We see I'm looking at like 3 different stocks that just have fucking dumped like 10% in a candle, 15%, 20% in a candle, and still 2 seconds later they're still holding up. And then people have that faith again, triggers that faith. All right, I'm back in. I'm still gonna hold. I'm gonna add even more. I'm gonna average down. And then next candle, it just grabs a lower wick and just boom, there's your stop hit. And then it's right back up to do the same thing again. And even the best psychological traders suffer in those moments. I don't know anyone who's like obviously the best psychological trader, but I think I'm all right. I think I'm fairly disciplined, and even in situations like that, when I'm in it, it's different. I do struggle, which is why I cut myself. I try to, disable myself from being in that situation in the first place, so I don't take the risk. I'm starting to like ENVB more and more, to be completely honest. And that's mainly due to, other tickers that I'm just watching right now. They all just look like shit. PBM, just ridiculous. ENVB, on the other hand, although it's not a setup that I would trade. If I did, I would trade it with very little size too, just because it's already past pre-market high. It's already hit all the highs it needs. We're already like so far up. We're so overextended. We're just at $2, and it's still holding this trend very well. So, I'm sorry, I'm pointing to another chart. This trend right here. ENVB, wrong chart. It's still holding up this trend, this uptrend. So, but it's like, let's see what it does here. So this is crucial. Oh, wow, it's no bueno. Did I just evil eye the player or what? So, you know, it's gonna lower wick now. It's gonna be back up at 4.5 just to do it all over again. Yep. Let's go. All right. Time for round fucking 6 on the day. Now, let's get that lower wick. Let's be back up at 4.5. Let's get the hope factor in. Ready to do it all over again. Now is around the time where I think we should see something pop in out of nowhere, and I'm on edge for that. I'm ready. I have my scanners ready. I have, you know, dead stocks that got shit on in pre-market ready in case it's one of those. Or, you know, it could just be FCHL that continues taking it for the rest of the day. But, you know, at least from what I've seen, I'm not saying this is statistical fact, definitely from what I've seen, on days where, you know, the volume is more spread out, we see just a random stock come out of nowhere and take it. You know, at least like an hour and a half into market open. Yo, so what do you guys, whoever's in here watching, if you guys are not busy, or if you guys are still here actually listening, feel free to type in chat, bro. I don't see any messages coming in on the chat. Red Hot, if you're still here, let me know and I can answer your questions. Yep. And there we go. Round 4, ENVB. This time it's the time, guys. I promise. This one's the one. You gotta believe me. I know the last 5 times it wasn't it, but this time it's gonna be it. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. I don't know if some people might not be able to tell. Keep an eye on WLDS too. This one looks very, very exciting. So wait, this looks explosive, to be completely honest. And first, 50, I'd say stretch it out. No, 5 minute. If we take a look at the first 5 minute candle as well, 2.1, right? We broke under 2.1, grabbed liquidity, chased 2.5, rejected that level, and then now we're breaking over that 2.1 5-minute candle, that lower wick in the first 5 minutes. In the first 5 minutes, volume is so crucially important, and the way ticks and the way wicks form and the levels they form at, that's the only level that I ever actually pay attention to. And it's not like I take it so seriously where it's like I'm buying if it breaks it. No, of course not. I'm still watching everything else. I'm still basing my trade off of volume rotation. I'm just saying it's something I keep an eye for, because I do see it matter a lot. For example, I just pull up anything like TOVX. I mean, if we look at the 5 minute on TOVX, you guys can see like when it broke under this first lower wick on the first 5 minute candle, when it broke under right here, grabbed liquidity, we saw a pretty big move all the way to 45 cents. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not really like saying, oh, like, it's, you guys understand. Okay. What did I have here before? We should watch FCHL. That is the top gainer. So yeah, I do like WLDS a lot. My friend just put it on my watch actually. I think that 2-2 break is gonna be massive. And TOVX, actually, ironically, the one we were just talking about, also starting to see some movement here. TOVX, so again, once again, that lower 5 minute wick, as you guys can see, bounced off it and is now going for highs. WLDS, I'm okay being a little late on WLDS if it means I can get some higher conviction on it. It also has a recent reverse split as well. So it fits the theme, tiny float. I was gonna say, WLDS, let's see, 210 test. See if we're able to get a good opportunity for an entry here, some sort of sweep. Wow, TOVX. All right, 45 test. This is pretty big actually for TOVX. I still think it's gonna be one of those tickers that just flushes down, just like PBM was. I'm not gonna lie, I really do. It's just But, you know, obviously I could be very well wrong and it could absolutely explode. But for those reasons, I'm not going to touch it, even though, you know, the setup is there. If you compare that type of volume, that type of momentum to a ticker like WLDS is so much smoother. It's much more relaxed, and it has much less eyes on it compared to TOVX. And that's why I think WLDS has a higher shot, and that's why I prefer WLDS, even though both of them are good setups. Both of them are very ideal 5-minute lower wick setups that have been accumulating and holding up well while other tickers run. Hopefully we'll get a trade on one of them pretty soon. TOVX retesting the breakthrough point 4.5. Let's see how it does here. I think that WLDS is very, very low risk, and it could catch potentially pretty easily. So I might start accumulating pretty slowly here just to see how things go. And if FCHL were to lose volume, lose momentum, then I'm sure that WLDS would be a very good candidate. So I'm gonna grab 6,000 shares to start me off here at 218, and then I hope we can see a retest of 2.1. And that's going to show me if, you know, buyers have good demand. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah. And so I'm hoping to see a retest of 2.1 before, you know, any 225 action. That would be pretty ideal, just because I also, not only do I want it to retest that level and see if buyers are strong enough to actually sustain a quick move to the upside from 2.1. I also want to accumulate more shares, obviously. But yeah, so let's see, TOVX. If it's possible that TOVX would, you know, just take the volume right now and WLDS come down, and that would be pretty funny. But WLDS to me is the much safer trade, because TOVX, as I've been telling you guys, is like a PBM type of setup where it's just going to go up, down, up, down, up, down, that type of thing, you know? Whereas WLDS, on the other hand, is more of a real settled out accumulation trade. You can tell by the variance of the tape even that this is just more stretched out, and it's one of the only tickers really that has been holding up fairly well. So we'll see how it goes. We're hitting 2.3 now. I would ideally want 2.5 out of this trade, because I'm in a smaller position. I'm only in how many shares? 6,000, right? 6,000 shares. So ideally, I want a bigger move than 2-3. If I was in full position, I would be scaling out. So hopefully we could see 2-4 plus in the next minute or so. Even with FCHL, yeah, it looks a little weak. So WLDS still looks weak on the move to the upside, mainly due to the fact that FCHL is still maintaining volume. It's still holding that momentum. So WLDS just in general is looking weak on the tape, especially as I'm watching it now. But I think if FCHL were to slow down just a tiny bit, this could see like a 15 to 20 cent candle, in my opinion. We shall watch and find out, I guess. Oh, I should switch here so I could show you guys FCHL alongside. Oh, I guess TOVX is also important too to watch alongside WLDS. So if you have your own screen, I would say watch TOVX as well. I have TOVX right here, by the way. Like this is on the right, and then I have WLDS here. But also FCHL is important. I don't want to make this 3 charts just because it's probably gonna be harder for you guys to see. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it on TOVX actually because TOVX is holding up fairly well now, and it's holding 4 or 5 retests, so that we'll keep it on TOVX. We will keep it on TOVX. How about that? And you know, WLDS not a bad move so far. We're up $700, but like I said, I'm not in my full position yet, so I'm definitely not going to take any profit here at 2-3. TOVX, wow, bastard, that is brilliant. And since the volume is spread out today, I'm not really too stressed out about WLDS. I do think that it should still continue 2-4 break, hopefully, before it sees some type of slowdown from, if TOVX ends up fucking ripping 20 cents, I would, reevaluate my risk. Okay, and there we go. FCHL coming down. Please break under 90 cents. That would be a good scenario. Good scenario. And mainly TOVX. Okay, here we go. Let's see. So as I said, WLDS push to the upside looks, rather weak. And that definitely, like, I think it's pretty obvious on the tape that sellers are pretty dominant here at 2-3. So I'm still gonna hold, obviously, my full position. I've already said that a couple times, but it is something worth consideration for sure. And that TOVX is a very funny situation, though. I can't lie. Like, I used TOVX as an example of the 5-minute wick, I think like 3 fucking times. And wow, what a monster move on TOVX, actually. 4-9. I doubted TOVX, and I didn't take it. That was the one for sure. That was the one that I should have caught today. And I think me being on edge and extremely picky with the volume everywhere, it made me feel like I had to take the lower risk trade, and I'm happy I did that, and I would do it again. And that's just my own probability, and I trust my decision making and not taking that trade. So it is what it is. Obviously, we missed out on a very nice move, but if you think about it, we saw similar situations to TOVX, similar type setups, right, at the same time. And you know, I scaled out of 4,000 shares on WLDS, by the way. Sorry for the interruption of my speech, but $1,000 to 1,500 a day, you know, that's solid for me. I try nowadays when I hop on to aim for more, like 2,000, but like a year ago I was doing 1,000 very consistently, and I was very happy with it. So if I usually see 1,000 PNL, even though my trade disagrees with the overall consensus of that, and 3 years ago I used to be the biggest believer of never take profit on a specific number. Just every trade is different. If you have conviction in a trade, you hold it. But because you know I don't trade that often anymore, and I'm on like, you know, 3 times a week sometimes. I find it very comforting and very low stress, especially with all the other stuff I have going on in my life right now, to cut it and just hop off. Because a lot of times actually, when you hold on to your conviction, you'll be holding on to a trade for a very long time. But WLDS, this is a great stock. I fully still believe in it. I did take profit though. I closed $1,000 on the day. It's been 2 hours since I started the live stream. And yeah, we're breaking over 2.4. Great trade, good patience, good discipline. We waited 2 hours straight. I don't know if anyone was here for like at least an hour of it. That would be, is anyone even here, like in general? Or am I just talking to myself? Oh, Retta, what's going on? Yeah, did anyone catch that WLDS move, if there is someone even here in general? SSTS. No one caught it. No one's here. Sweet. Yeah, so, all right. Well, yo, Redo, Zach, I'm probably going to hop off now. Got some shit to handle. It's almost 8 a.m. But if you guys have any questions before I do hop off, since you guys were here from the beginning, I'll answer any questions you guys have, or like anything you guys want to talk about in general. Yeah, with WLDS, that could have been another 1,500 right there, but I'm happy we took profit. Yesterday I closed out at about an average of 1,000 a day as well, so I'm not mad about it at all. I'd very like to see it go up even more, just because it proves the conviction on the trade. We waited 2 hours for this trade alone. If you think about it, that is a long time. That is a long time for just one trade. But in a market like today, we knew what was happening. We knew all the bullshit we were going to deal with. And we performed fairly well, I would say, fairly well. TOVX, I'm definitely a little upset about this one, and trust me, I will be studying this chart for 40 minutes today to find out how I can not miss this next time, because I was pretty confident in the fact that it wouldn't go, and so I didn't take it. And even though it was something I was watching all day, whereas 90% of traders in general would not be watching this stock. I'm not even saying this like, you know, I'm just a regular guy too, you know, but at the end of the day, like 90% of the market is not watching TOVX at all, ever, during this entire build up. So the fact that we were watching it the entire time, and I said, hey, this could usually go, but just based off today in general, I'm not going to take it because the volume is so spread out. And that's why I focused on WLDS over TOVX. I told you guys that was my conviction. That was what, you know, made me take WLDS over TOVX, was that WLDS is less people are in on it. It had way smaller risk, in my opinion. The probability of a higher success of a higher chance of, there was a higher chance of success, basically, higher probability that we'd win the trade rather than lose. And if we lost, we would lose way less on WLDS than TOVX. That was what my thought process was. But I am definitely going to do a very, very big recap on TOVX later today and find out exactly why I missed it, and, you know, just set it alongside the other stocks that were running at the same time today, and focusing on that. If you had a chance to get in on TOVX, where would you buy and why? This is where I would buy. So I'll show you where I bought on WLDS, and I'll show you where that I can replicate that same buy-in on TOVX if I had the conviction that TOVX would be the ticker that would make a nice move. 255 on WLDS. Let's go. So there we go. Our conviction proven. Hope it goes even more. So I'll show you exactly where I would have bought on TOVX. Okay, WLDS, I bought right here, I would say. Wait, I bought right here. Yep. I bought right here. It was like 1035, give or take. I bought there because, so 1035, I'm going to switch to the 5-minute chart. 1035 is here. Obviously, I bought like under 220. I think my average was like, I don't know, it's like 217 or something. But I bought at this area because this is the 5-minute lower wick. And we grabbed liquidity, made a solid move at 2.5. But you have to keep in mind, the volume was so spread out everywhere, right? There was so much chop happening. So WLDS saw some chop, not nearly as much as the other tickers, and still came down, held up, grabbed again a lot of volume, a lot of liquidity that was happening under a 210, 215 area. When I was watching the tape, it was great. That's what I was texting my friend about when we were discussing the trade, is how strong the tape was on WLDS in general, and how it was rounding off the $2 area. But when it approached 220, 225, sellers were becoming more and more dominant until FCHL fully broke down, and we were relying on that to happen, and we had assumed it would. And I bought at this area mainly because we were under the lower wick at 2.1. Grab liquidity under. That's the most simple answer for you, without like looking at all the other tickers, because I could tie it into so many other things that I was watching that I didn't have time to like speak out loud while I was even watching them, because I was focused on, you know, trying to time my entry, which is the hardest part. But to simplify it in one sentence, this is the lower wick of the first 5-minute candle. Came below it, broke above it, retested it, held up. I entered as soon as it retested. As soon as I entered after that red candle right there. Why? Because I saw that it held up. I saw that the tape was looking strong. Even though when we pushed upwards, when we pushed towards 2.2, the tape was weak. When we needed demand, when we needed to hold up a level, when we offered a good deal, demand was there for it, and that was very crucial to me. This is where I entered, and that, if I replicated that, it would be right here. In 2 seconds, it would be right here. I'm going to show the 1 minute because it moved very quickly. It would be in this area, at this 4.4 area right here. That's where it would have been. And that's because I would have seen that we grabbed, actually, there could have been 2 potential entries on TOVX because it had settled out more. And and WLDS, wow, what a play. This might be the top gainer on the day, and that would be phenomenal. And there you go. That's volume rotation for you. And I said since the morning, the goal every day, we find a play that no one else is watching. No one else is watching. And that's how you make money. That's the only way to make money. But TOVX, that's why I prefer WLDS over TOVX, by the way, in general, was because WLDS, no one was watching it. TOVX had so much volume. It was so crowded. WLDS, my goodness. what a move that is. Anyway, my first entry on TOVX would have been right around here on the retest of this level right here. This could have been the first potential entry for me if I had conviction in it, like I did WLDS. My second potential entry was the retest of this breakout right here, because I had known that there was really no other volume happening anywhere in the market. So if we're going to reject a certain level, and if we're going to actually, you know, if the accumulation is going to build up to be something, then this retest should pay off very well. Sorry, I'm taking a look at the tape of WLDS. I'm very intrigued. But yeah, let me know if that didn't make sense. I'm sorry, I might have yapped a little too hard. I'm not very used to talking while scanning charts and tapes and stuff. Yo, so WLDS, my goodness, what a play. I'm also I'm looking forward to not only recapping TOVX and finding out why I didn't get into it when I should have and caught that minor move, but also I'm very interested in recapping WLDS as well. But that is absolutely brilliant for sure. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, if anyone else has any questions, I'm just closing out for the day. I'm just mainly I'm very interested in watching what happens to WLDS, but I'm done trading for the day. That's it. If I was gonna trade anything else, I would have held WLDS for longer. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free, type them. Also, if you guys enjoyed the live and stuff, feel free to give me a like. That'd be kind of fire. You know, I don't have a course for you guys. I'm not selling anything. I'm just here to like hop on and chill, to be honest. I would actually love if you know, I can make a thing where there's, you know, other people would be interested in, you know, talking as well, and like, but that would be very distracting for me in the first place. I wouldn't like that. But yeah, maybe some more activity would be kind of nice, but it's all good. TOVX. So, I mean, I think TOVX is a very interesting situation for me today because, all right, it did give me a move that I could have profited on for sure, but I guess I was overthinking it a little bit a second ago because at the end of the day, I was right. About TOVX. I wasn't right, like, as in, like, I said exactly what's going to happen, but TOVX, I told you guys, to me, was another PBM. I said that repeatedly. I said it's just going to go up, down, up, down, up, down. And, you see PBM, same type of thing, right? If you look at TOVX, it did eventually come down, but I think the main thing I'm going to recap tonight is how I could have caught this trade, this situation happening. I think there was, this is when the volumes start to die down on other tickers. Also, keep in mind, the one thing I want to point out, if there's one thing you guys should take from today, and I know I'm all over the place when I'm talking right now, and I apologize, but if there's one thing you guys should take away from this entire live stream is that we waited out the volume. The volume was, at the beginning of the stream, was very spread out in many different tickers. We waited it out. We waited out the volume. We waited out the choppiness. We waited until the volume was in only one stock, and that was FCHL. So when you look at the beginning of the stream, you go watch it at the beginning, you would see that every single stock that was running, every single stock that was a top gainer was running. It had volume, it had momentum. It was just running, and it was chopping people out. It was the volume was everywhere. It was spread out across so many different tickers. The moment that the volume got stuck in one stock, which was FCHL, that's when opportunities started to open, and that's when I decided on two candidates, TOVX and WLDS. Those were the two candidates. I checked every single stock that you could possibly check. I looked at every single scanner that I could possibly look at. I was everywhere, and I made two candidates, and it was very clear to me what those candidates were because they were the only stocks that have been holding up all day. They've been accumulating. They're ready for the run. They're ready for the breakout. They've been looking forward to this moment all day. But the volume has been so choppy, and it's been spread across so many different stocks that they're not able to get the opportunity to break out. No one's gonna focus on WLDS when there's fucking FCHL, CMND, ENVB, PBM. Why would anyone focus on WLDS when it dumped as soon as market opened? That's it. Everyone's like, oh, fuck it. That's it. Move on. Why would we care about that? Why would we care about this stock if it dumped into market open? But I care about it because they don't care about it. For the same exact reason that other people aren't looking at it, that's why I'm there. It's because people forgot about it. They forgot about it. They think it's done. They think it's over. The run's done. But in my eyes, the run's hasn't even started yet. This is real accumulation. This is where it happens. And that's why when my buddy was trading ENVB, I didn't want to take it because I knew that there would be a stock that would run out of nowhere based off the volume today. That's how today was always planned to go. That's how it has been from the start. It was so obvious that a stock would just come in out of nowhere, a beaten down stock from pre-market, or just a random stock that hasn't even run all day. But when I identified it was WLDS versus TOVX, WLDS was the much lower risk, and I never trade two stocks at the same time. So I took WLDS, and you guys saw my thoughts on that real time. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail of that, but the only thing I do want to recap for myself is figuring I do think that TOVX is the first trade I should have taken. I think it was very possible to either trade both stocks at the same time, which is something that I never do. That's the first thing I want to look into. I want to study the risk to reward on that situation. Second thing is I want to look into whether trading TOVX and then switching to WLDS was something that I could have thought about, but was completely closed off to. And the third thing I want to think about is obviously why TOVX was not, why I didn't see this move coming. I didn't see this breakout coming. And if there wasn't a WLDS today, if it was another stock and I didn't have my eyes on WLDS, the main reason why I'm irritated with this situation is if there was no WLDS and it was another stock that I wasn't watching, I would have still been break even today. I would have been at zero profit, even though I knew that TOVX was the only candidate I had besides WLDS. So if I wasn't watching WLDS today, I would have came out with $0 profit, even though I was watching the stock that ran. And whenever that happens, that's a perfect recap moment. And it's irritating because I want to get down to the exact little detail, but I know that, you know, with penny stocks, with anything really related to trading, there is no exact little detail, and there's just always going to be stuff you'll never have an answer to. Did ENVB do the same move as WLDS, break the 5-minute low, hold up and move up? No, because ENVB was a runner straight from market open. So if you look at ENVB, this was a runner straight from market open. Oh, you're talking about right now. Oh, yes, it did actually. Yes, I wasn't paying attention to that at all. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It didn't break it, I don't think, but it retested that level. No, it broke it. It broke it. You're right. Here you go. This is the lower wick of the 5-minute candle. So it broke it, grabbed liquidity. You see that lower wick, came back, retested it, and then saw a nice little move upwards. But this is, in my opinion at least, I don't think ENVB is going anywhere. It could if WLDS is one of those stocks that ends up fading. I think ENVB does have the backbone to make it happen. So I would never trade ENVB. I would never have traded it since the start of the morning. But like I said from the start, ENVB was going to be a ticker that determines what we do end up trading because it was the ticker with the most volume. Also, one more thing I want to point out as well. For your question that you asked, Retta, is that ENVB doing this, holding up above the lower wick on the 5-minute, is not nearly as important. And I don't think I wouldn't even, the reason I didn't even notice this, and I wasn't even looking at ENVB in general really, was because, and the reason I would never notice it, even if I was looking at ENVB, I don't think I would notice that, is because it's already a momentum trade. It already made its high. You know, this really matters. This is a sign of liquidity and demand at a level that, you know, was hit very in a very volatile way. Because you know when market opens, that first candle is extremely volatile. You see a upper wick, lower wick, whatever it is that, you know, and then they end up squeezing in the middle somehow or somewhere. And you end up hitting that lower wick. And that really was the bottom of that minute of such a volatile candle. So that's why I look at the opening 5-minute wick for an accumulation trade, for like a liquidity grab, you know, a stock that's already coming down, that's, that's been beaten down. That's why I think it matters a lot. In this type of situation, it could matter. I just don't have the reasoning to back it up, to be completely honest with you. That's probably the best way of putting it. So it could very well matter just as much, if not even more. I just wouldn't have the evidence, nor the reasoning, nor, you know, the thoughts as to why or, you know, when to look for it happening. All right, guys. I'm gonna hop off now. Um, I have a lot of other stuff I need to attend to, but I hope you guys learn some stuff. I don't know if you guys are just here chilling. That's pretty cool. Um, hope you guys like found some value. If you did, leave a thumbs up. Let me know in chat if you guys like want to see that. I don't know when the next time I might come on live is. Might be in like the end of the week, might be next week. I'm not sure, but whenever I do have time, I will definitely hop on. It's very fun. It's very cool. It's something I enjoy, and if I have the time, I would love to leave a stamp of myself for sure on YouTube. So I'll see you guys. Good luck trading for the rest of the day, and take it easy. Be patient today. I think it's gonna be a rocky day. I think it's just gonna be one ticker that ends up taking all the volume. That's what I see happening. By the way, I see just one stock taking all the volume, whether that be ENVB, WLDS. I see one stock taking all the volume for the next couple hours. So be very careful. Expect a choppy market, and yeah, I will see you guys next time I'm live. Peace out.